Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. And joining me today is Joseph. How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm so glad to be here today.
Yeah. How has the year been going so far for you? I know it's February.
I'm very busy. I got like way too much. I'm good at putting way too much on my plate. And so that's where I'm going. I'm learning. I've got a couple books going
Oh,
and
wow.
we can talk about those. But
Yeah.
also looking to make one of my books into a movie. So I've got that I'm
Mhm.
working on and just learning how to market in general. I've kind of got a lot of things I'm pursuing as I'm learning marketing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. Tell us, Joseph, where about are you and how long have you been living there?
Okay, I am in San Diego, California. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and moved out here when I was about 7. My parents divorced when I was 5, and I moved out here with my mom and my little sister, and we kind of moved around San Diego area a lot here and there with my mom and stayed a lot
Mhm.
with my cousins and then my mom got remarried, and so right now I am in a place called Rancho Penasquitos, a few miles east of Del Mar. So I grew up in Del Mar, went to
Mhm.
junior high and high school in Del Mar, and before we moved to Del Mar, my mom bought this house, and they held on to it and got another house in Del Mar. And so now I'm renting this house from them.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you tell us what is it that you do and how do you do it?
Okay, I do a lot of stuff. So I started trimming trees when I was about 15. And so through that, I developed a tree service. I got a contractor's license, became a certified arborist, also did all that stuff along the way. And when I was 30, I went back to college. One day, the Lord spoke to me, said, I want you to go back to school. And so that was, I think, in October. And so then couple months later, I was back in school for the January at Point Loma Nazarene University, which is better than Surf City. It's right on the coast here in San Diego, and there's a lot of nursing teaching students. So if you're familiar with the song Surf City, this is better than Surf City because there's 5 girls for every boy at Point Loma Nazarene University.
Yeah.
And so a lot easy to get distracted there. But nevertheless, it was great because I got to be in school. I went to school every morning and went surfing every afternoon. And I got a degree in literature with a minor in Spanish. And when I got out of school, I didn't know what to do with a degree in literature. I didn't, I could have been a good teacher, but I didn't go on to learn that. And I really didn't know what to do. So I started my tree service again, and over time, God gave me some stuff to write about. And so I didn't really use my degree straight out of the gate, but over time, it has definitely worked out for me.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I've
That's
written,
amazing.
yeah, so I've written 2 books. So I got them both here. We got this one I'm going to reprint. If you want to grow rich, plant a tree. It's biblical insights to growing residual income. So I'm on the reprint mode. So I think it'll be back out in 90 days. So doing a little bit of work on it and getting it back out. And this is the one I'm working on right now, Hosea, the prophet who married a prostitute. So
Mm.
you can get that right now on Amazon and other places. And so what that is a modern day interpretation of the story of Hosea, the Old Testament prophet who married a prostitute. So as if Hosea were alive today in San Diego, California.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So much to unpack. First of all, tell me, what was the process like for you when you were writing your first book? Because first time authors, it can be nerve-wracking and not um, understanding if other people are gonna accept the work that you're doing, if that makes sense.
Right, I understand. So I dealt with that kind of aspect more on the second book, but on the first book, Um, what happened is I was in financial problems. I was married, so I'm divorced now, but I was in having serious financial hardships. Life was getting more difficult, and I just kind of prayed a very simple prayer one day. I said, Lord, you see how I'm stuck in this ditch and it's getting worse, and I know no matter how deep it gets, you can get me out of it. Please help, right? And so then a month or two later, I was reading John chapter 15, and I'm the vine, you're the branch. And so as I was reading that, the Lord spoke to me. He said, you need to get out of the tomato business and get into the peach and avocado business.
Mm.
And so thinking about my own backyard, I didn't have any tomatoes in my backyard, but I did have peaches and avocados.
Yeah.
So what he said didn't make sense. And I go, okay, so obviously, he's got a bigger message here. And so I go, what do you mean? And so he likened tomatoes to your 9 to 5 job. You go to work, you work 5 days, you get paid on Friday, and if you don't go back to work on Monday, the next Monday, you're not going to get a paycheck on Friday, right?
Yeah.
And so that's like a tomato. You plant a tomato seed and the tomato grows, you get tomatoes fairly quickly. The plant dies, you have to start
Mhm.
all over, right?
Mhm.
And so that's like your 9 to 5 job. And then the peaches and avocados, like I have a peach in my yard right now. I have two peach trees, actually three, but I got the peach from my sister, the original one,
Mhm.
and she has peach tree in her yard. And so she gave me at the end of the summer one of her seeds just from her rotten peaches that fall on the ground. Had a little sprout, and so she gave it to me. It's just a few inches tall, right? And
Mhm.
I planted it. I put it in a pot, and the first year it had one peach,
Wow.
and the second year it had 50 peaches,
Mhm.
and the third year it had 100 peaches. And so it keeps going. And the cool thing about peach trees is it can go for generations. So unlike the tomatoes that usually die pretty quickly, the peach goes for generations. And so the avocado trees are even a step away from that, in that you might not get your first avocado for 5 to 15 years, right? So
Mhm.
you plant the seed, it grows, it gets bigger and bigger, and you're going, okay, it's looking nice, but there's no fruit on it yet. And then finally one day you get fruit. And this, like the peach, it can go for generations, right? Hundreds of years. And so those are both forms of residual income. And so the message is that, yeah, you're not going to get anything up front. It's going to take a while. It's going to take some time to build this, but then eventually you'll have something that can go for generations.
Yeah.
And so he set a goal for me. And so there's some more information that goes into that. But that's the basic premise of it all. And
Mhm.
so I sat down, I wrote it down, and I published it. But the thing is, I didn't know how to market, right? And so,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to invest my time in marketing at the time. So I
Yeah.
wrote the book, and I had a page for it and all this stuff, and I didn't sell one single copy, right?
Yeah.
So I hear people who, are selling book writing programs, and they say it'll sell itself. No, they don't. I
Yeah.
am a witness. They do not sell themselves. You have to learn how to market,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn how to market, and I wasn't willing to do it at that time. But then I got my second book, Hosea, right? So God gave me that. I was At that time, I was single father, and I would take my kids to school. I'd feed them breakfast, make them lunch, take them to school, drop them off, and come home and pray for an hour. That was my schedule at that time. And
Mhm.
so then while I was praying on this particular day, so for about a half hour, I was just praying in the spirit, and I could tell things were a little different, but I'm going, okay, what's going on here? And then the second half hour was basically God made me to understand. It's like I saw a movie. I didn't watch it like a vision, but I understood it,
Mm.
right? So, like in John chapter 3, it says you'll see the kingdom, right?
Mhm.
Once you're born of the Spirit, you can see the kingdom. And so, speaking of understanding, right? And so, I understood. this movie. So I got really excited. I took notes, and it took me a long time. I wrestled. It took me 10 years to write the book. But I saw it as a movie, but it was easier for me to write the book first. So I wrote the book, and that's been out for 2 years. And so I still didn't know how to market. So I put it out. So I've been learning marketing to make this happen.
Mhm.
And so that's where we're at on that. But I put together a trailer. I've got a award-winning Emmy award-winning producer that wants to make my trailer and potentially my movie. So I'm taking the steps to make that happen right now also.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, when you make your movie, you know my email.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'd love to be part of your journey as you are of mine as well. That's incredible. I love your passion for what you do. You do talk about God and your faith. Can you tell us when did you become a Christian? And were
Mhm.
you brought up in a Christian family?
Okay, so I was saved at the age of 21, August 20th, 1985. And so before that, I got involved in all the bad stuff teenagers get into, and addictions and alcohol and all that other stuff. And I got saved. So I went into my mom. So my mom, over the course of life, she like tried out different religions and stuff. She was in transcendental meditation, whatever. And so then at one point she got born of the Spirit. And so at this time, she was attending an Assembly of God church. Now she goes to the Catholic Church. But at that time, for a couple of years, she was in an Assembly of God church. And so I started going there. And so I had miracles there within, pretty short time. I had some cool miracles happen there. And it's Assembly of God, so they believe in miracles. And then after a couple of years, I was attending this Bible study, and God told me, I want you to go to this church, full time. And so that's where I've been ever since. And so that was 1985.
Wow, that's
So I
awesome.
stuck with it the whole way. Obviously, life is tough and you have lots of stuff, but as Jesus says, in this world, you'll have tribulation, but be of good
Mhm.
cheer. I've overcome the world. So you could have your tribulations with or without Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And so if you got Jesus, he'll help you through them. And so I stuck with it. And life is hard for everybody, and you just have
Mhm.
to go through it. But he's made us victorious in all things, and you just have to stick with it and trust him.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, have you read the Bible? Because every time I try, I either get halfway. I'm a millennial, I'm trying. But there are there are many ways to digest the Word of God. Tell me, what is one of your favorite Bible verse?
My five, John, not John. Well, John 15 is one of them, and then we have Genesis 49:22. That's the blessing of Joseph. But then we have Revelation 1:5. Unto him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood and made
Mhm.
us kings and priests. So yes, unto him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. That would be my favorite.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Genesis is a very hard chapter. So is Revelation. You need to
Uh-huh.
you need to have had many revelations to be able to get through Revelation.
Well, so the thing about Revelation is people try to spiritualize it, right? And that's the problem. And people try to interpret things. And that's where we get off on all kinds of crazy stuff. And because the Bible's not for private interpretation. So you have to let it interpret itself. And so things that are plain um, and easily understood, people mess up by trying to interpret them. So it's like, and I'm just going to use this one example. There's a place where these giant locusts come out and are attacking people for a period of time. But before that happens, it says the heaven is rolled up like a scroll. It's and so what happens is like right now we don't see into the heavens, we don't see God, he's invisible, we don't see the angels, the devils, unless he specifically opens our eyes, right? Which does happen. But for the most part we are living blind, right? We don't get to see God in heaven. We don't see all that stuff. And so it says, like our guardian angel, he says his angels are always beholding my Father in heaven, right? So you have a guardian angel, every single person.
Yeah.
And so you have one right there with you, and he has interaction with heaven. He's beholding his Father in heaven right now, your angel. So your angel is looking into the heavenly realm, but you can't see it, right? But in that part of the book of Revelation, the heaven rolls up like a scroll. And
Mm-hmm.
so the spirit world is opened up to everybody on the earth. And so they get to see all these crazy demon locusts
Mm-hmm.
flying around. So some people say, oh, they're Chinese helicopters, they're this, they're that, they're whatever. No, they're demon locusts flying around,
Yeah.
stinging people.
Yeah.
And so that's just really hard for us to grasp, but that's what's going on because we
Yeah.
don't see it there. If you go outside and your eyes were open, you would see all of the demonic forces all over the place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But since our eyes are closed, we don't see them. And so we're just like, duh, walking through life, you know? And unless you're really thinking about it and applying yourself and going, this is what's going on. That's why that person was mean to me. That's why this happened, right? Because they're all influenced by these demon spirits, you know, and then that's why this good thing happened and other stuff, because I got angels watching over me and God's
Yeah.
protecting me, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the dynamics of our world. We just don't see it. And
Mm-hmm.
so a big part of understanding Revelation is just saying, hey, this is flat out what's going on. Let's not try to interpret and make it something else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So you are
Yeah.
a former professional surfer. I can't
Yes.
swim. So when did you learn how to swim? Why did you choose to surf? And clearly you've survived all the waves. Tell me
Right.
more.
I want to comfort you because there's a saying out there that black people can't swim, but
Oh,
there are black
I
people.
hear things here and there.
But I do know that there are black surfers that have done what I've done and
Yeah,
ridden surf 40-foot waves. So they are out there. So
yeah.
all of you people out there um, that
Yeah,
have things in your mind that are inhibiting you, just realize they're not true. So you're a person just like everybody else. Your skin color doesn't matter, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, nevertheless, yeah. So I was a professional surfer. Like I said, I liked surfing big waves when I was a kid, but I was afraid to go surf really big waves, like I really wanted to until I got saved. So once I got saved and I knew my soul was secure at the age of 21, I went to Hawaii and started taking on bigger waves. And so I worked my way up to the 40-foot range. So I put in some 40-foot days, 40-foot plus, got a few photos there. And there's an island. I'm in San Diego. So I'm about an hour and a half drive from Ensenada. And
Mhm.
there's an island off Ensenada called Todos Santos Island. And you take a boat, takes a good boat, takes about 45 minutes, one of the pongas there, and then you're out there. And so the waves there are about 3 times bigger than
Mhm.
what it is here.
Wow.
And so you could go out there, you know, obviously we look at the surf report, the weather report, all different stuff, and try to figure out when the good day is going to be and go out there. So I put in a bunch of 40-foot
Mhm.
days out there
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
in the 80s and 90s.
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually interviewed the lady who teaches people how to swim because
Uh-huh.
there are so many people who can't swim and
Right.
I can't. I'm learning how to swim. I've been going to the pool almost every day now. Um, but what are your thoughts when it comes to kind of breaking that shaming barrier? Because it can be embarrassing because you get 3-year-old that'll fish, and then here
Uh-huh.
you're older and just can't move through the water.
Yeah, my kids were all in the water before they were 2 years old.
Did you just toss
So
them in? You
my
tossed it.
kids are fish. Huh?
Did you just toss them in the water and they figured out?
Something like that. I remember like one day, I think it was Hezekiah, my youngest, but we were down at the ocean and in the shallow, and I don't know, he was probably just short of 2 years old, and I saw this little wave coming, and I knew it was gonna clobber him, right? And he had his back to the ocean. That's one things you're not supposed to do, nevertheless.
Mm,
And so I go, okay, he's gonna get clobbered, but I knew he was okay. He'd already been in the water, he was used to it. And so this wave totally clobbered him, and he came in. I was about 20 feet away, and he kind of washed past me. I knew about where he was. I didn't see him. He was underwater, right?
yeah.
In the white water. And sure enough, he popped up and he was fine. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, that's just one of my memories from my kids, and so that was kind of scary for me. It wasn't scary for him at all. He was surprised, but he was okay. He didn't see it coming. But my number one rule for swimming, and especially the ocean, but in everything in life, it applies. But my number one rule that I teach people, I've taught a lot of surf lessons also in my days, especially to foreign exchange students, but is don't panic. That's the number one rule. And so when you panic, that's when things go wrong. So a lot of people die not because they inhaled water, but because they panicked and all of their muscles locked up
Mhm.
and then they couldn't breathe. So
Yeah.
that's how people drown. And so it seems kind of shocking, but that's what it is. That's what fear will do to you.
Yeah.
And so, a perfect illustration of this I like to use is one day I had my two youngest sons out surfing, and one of them was surfing on the surfboard, and the other one was on the boogie board. Hezekiah was on the boogie board, and so my son on the surfboard, he made it out past the breakers, right? Because they were used to standing on their feet,
Mm,
on the ocean bottom, out in the ocean, and then turning around and jumping on their board when a wave came, right?
yeah.
So then to get over their head, that was a step up. And so my son Abraham did that one day. And then my son Hezekiah saw that and he goes, "Oh, I'm going to get out there too." Right. And
Yeah.
so he got out there and I was watching him from a little ways away. And sure enough, waves come in sets.
Mhm.
And so a set of waves came and the wave hit him and knocked his boogie board out of his hand, right? And so it went in. And so he was out there and I could see he was scared. I was a little ways away. And so I paddled like halfway to him. I didn't want to get too close where he would swim to me. I wanted to be far close enough so that he could see me and talk to me and know that I was there, but I wasn't going to help him, right? And so I go,
Yeah.
"Hey, what's up?" He's all, "I lost my boogie board." He was scared. And I go, "Okay, I see that. So what's the number one rule of water safety?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
don't panic." And so he goes, "Don't panic." And I go, "Right. So how are you doing? What are you doing?" He's all, "Oh, I gotta go." Yeah, I go, I said, "What do you got it? So what do you need to do?" He's all, "I gotta go in and get my boogie board." I
Yeah.
said, "Okay, we'll
Yeah.
just go." And
Yeah.
he kind of looked at me, and he was doing the dog paddle, whatever, hanging. And he goes, "Okay." And so then he just swam in, got his boogie board, and came back out, right?
Yeah.
And so I worked him through that moment of panic, right? And so it's not just don't panic, but what do you do when you do panic, right?
Yeah.
And so because you're gonna get that no matter what, you're gonna be in life, and things are gonna happen, and you're gonna lock up, you're gonna freeze up, you're gonna go, what do
Yeah.
I do? And so you have to learn how to work through that moment of panic,
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, obviously, and go on with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Because I Googled just how to swim just for fun because Google is just that good. And you can Google anything, you'll find it. You're right. Don't panic, don't fear. Those are the first two things that came up when learning how to swim. You're
All
right.
right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. So you did it and you found out I'm telling you the truth, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. So
So
you well, yeah,
let me tell you one other thing real quick too,
yeah.
because there's a misunderstanding about rip currents because people think that rip currents pull you under, but they don't. They just take you out to sea. So what happens though is we have the waves come in, they break on the shore, and then we have what's called inshore holes. because once they come in, the water builds up and it's got to go back out, right? So it forms channels. Okay. So in those channels, it's deeper, right? So the water's deeper. So you might be, walking along. Like one day I was walking along the beach just in ankle deep water and I wasn't really paying attention. It's beautiful sunny afternoon. I'm just kind of cruising along. And then all of a sudden I stepped into an inshore hole. And so I went from
Ooh.
ankle to waist deep. I was up to my belly button in one step, right?
Oh,
And so
wow.
even me, with all the experience I have,
Yeah.
like there was that moment of panic, like, I was scared and I could feel the current pulling me out, and here I am walking in 3 inches of water, right? Not a care in the world. And next thing I know, I'm up to my belly button and it's taking me out to sea. It's like, what happened to the 3 inch water, And
Wow.
so I panicked for a second, but I knew, what was going on.
Yeah.
And so it just took me a second or two. And then I just kept walking because I knew I would get through the channel. And I got back up on the shallow water and kept going.
Yeah.
But so the water didn't the current did not pull me under. I stepped into a hole. And
Oh,
so that's what's going on. And
yeah.
so the thing is, if you don't panic, it'll just suck you out, especially if you're like swimming, and it'll just suck you out to sea. And then there's a head, is what it's called. But to get out of it, you swim sideways. You don't try to swim straight in against it. That's going to wear you out. You're not going to get anywhere, And then
Mhm.
even if you go all the way out, you want to swim sideways and then come back in, and you
Yeah.
won't be fighting the current.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, that's really cool. I think I watched too much shows like Jaw that with
Jaws, right?
Jaws. And then now there's the Meg. I'm like, how big do these sea monsters get?
Yeah, I surf with sharks too. So if you want to hear some shark stories, I got shark stories.
Yeah, well, you survived, so do tell us more.
Yeah, I went surfing one day, like right down the beach from where I'm at. The next beach over is Torrey Pines. And so at one point in 30 days, they tagged 51 great white sharks at Torrey
Wow.
Pines. So
Yeah.
that's 51 sharks in 30 days, all different sharks, not the same sharks.
Wow.
And so there's tons of them out there, right? And if they want to eat you, they can, right? But for the most part, they don't. And so, like one day, I was getting ready to go out surfing. These guys came in, and two of them, I go, "How was the surf?" And he goes, "There's sharks out there." And I go, and I was already used to seeing sharks, right? And so I go, "Okay, well, how was the surf?" They couldn't even answer me. They were scared. And so I just got all my stuff. I went out there, and there was a pretty big great white that was sitting in the lineup. He was just swimming around the lineup, and it had a baby with it, right? So mama and baby, and like 30 or 40 feet out past where we were sitting.
Mhm.
And so the whole time they were out there just kind of swimming around.
Oh,
And
wow.
they weren't after me. They
Yeah.
weren't after us. They were just doing their thing. We were doing our thing. And
Hmm.
so, you know, swimming with the great whites. If you wanted to eat, you would have. And
Yeah.
on that same day, I was actually paddling out and I touched a different shark.
Oh,
I
wow.
saw, yeah, I saw a shark. I was on the inside. I saw a shark a little ways off. It was kind of coming my way, and I just kept paddling, right? And then the
Yeah.
fin went under, and then boom, I touched it with one of my hands while I was paddling. And
Oh,
so I'm like,
wow.
whoa. So, I'd never done that before. That was kind of scary, but
Yeah.
obviously I'm here today. I live to tell the story.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that we didn't get to talk about that you'd like to talk to us about?
I don't know. I got so much stuff going on. Single parent with 4 kids. That was
Mhm.
tough, that that's part of what prolonged my story, part of my, I guess a big thing of my, if you want to grow rich, plant a tree, is just making your time schedule, right? It's scheduling time. And and so and as you're doing that, you make schedules, but especially when you got kids, life, things happen, right? And
Yeah.
so you get knocked off schedule,
Hmm.
and you just have to keep coming back. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the thing. You just got to keep coming back. Things happen, life happens, and
Hmm.
Things will happen to try to get you off course, whatever, and you just have to come back and keep doing it, keep after it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I think, especially single parents, they do suffer and struggle, mostly in silence, and they give up on their dreams and their identity and who they are. How did you keep coming back? Where did you find the fuel to keep pushing forward?
Well, you have to have the goal right up front. And what's really cool is God gave me goals, right? So I can say the things I got came from God. And so you do have to make that time to set apart to hear from God. And, it's awesome when you have events happen like, get out of the tomato business and the peach and avocado business. When God speaks to you in a big way like that, that's awesome. But you're gonna have other days when he's not speaking like that and in the same level. But he's still there, he's still watching you, and you're gonna feel better. I mean, I've had days when I went to God in prayer and I didn't feel good, but I did feel better, you
Yeah.
know? And so um just think if I hadn't done that, if I just let myself be overwhelmed and go, oh, life isn't worth living or whatever, bummer thoughts I would do, it's not worth it, why should I bother, then I wouldn't have done that. But since I did that, I felt better, and that strengthened me, empowered me to keep going. And then eventually, you get breakthroughs,
Mhm.
and so you, like it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, Psalm 23, right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes that's how life feels. And as one person said, if you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, keep walking.
Mhm.
Don't pitch a tent, don't build your house there, don't stop, keep walking. And the Lord's with you, his rod and his staff, they comfort you. And so it may be tough for a time, but keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So what's next in your journey? You're gonna write more books, make that movie.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of books I want to write, and I've got at least one more movie to write. My next one is focused on kids, like middle school age kids, which would be a family movie. And I'm calling that one Lily's Long Day. So kind of modeling it after my girl. I got my oldest girl and three boys, and so she just had as a little girl, she had a super bubbly, vivacious personality, very smart and,
Mhm.
witty. And so I just kind of modeled that after her. And so that's going to be a book and a movie. Once I get this one, once I get this one where I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how can we support your journey and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so if you want, you can find me at www.josephdescans.com, and you can find my book Hosea there, and you can order that. So I've got a few 5-star reviews there. I got some people that really love it. Like anything, there's a few people that don't understand or don't get it or have something, whatever. But for the
Mhm.
most part, everybody loves my book, and I've got kind of a unique writing style that really kind of helps get
Mhm.
feel the emotion of what's going on there. So people love my style. And so you can get that. And then in a few months, hopefully within about 90 days, I'll have my other book back on there too.
Mhm.
You can get that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever, all those
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Two questions for you as we wrap up. What do you want people to get out of everything we just talked about and also your journey?
The thing is, you have to wait on the Lord. You want to wait on the Lord. You got to put him first. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. So you have to do that first.
Mhm.
And then you have to have the expectation that he's going to help you and you're going to succeed,
Mhm.
because life has dips and curves and ups and downs and all those things. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. And so things are going to change. And you got to stick with the program.
Yeah,
You can't quit, you can't bail out. Just keep going and wait on the Lord and expect him to help you.
absolutely. Thank you. My last question for you, which I ask every guest, what is the meaning of life for you?
what is the meaning of life? Well, the meaning of life for me is, to do the will of God. And so everybody has, obviously, there's general rules for everybody, but there's things that God has intended for you before he put you in your mom's womb. He
Mhm,
already had a plan for you. He had a purpose for your life. And so you need to connect with that and
mhm.
you need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's two levels. It's just the general thing that applies for everybody, the principles in the Bible, and
Mhm,
then the specific plan that he has for you.
mhm. I love that. Well, Joseph, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing your journey, your expertise, and your amazing stories about surfing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Bernadette. This was a great podcast. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.